Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Chief Concerns. This is your post-draft show, our first ever post-draft show. Obviously Marcus Dash here with our guy Lance, who usually does our post-game show with us from the Spoken Podcast. And actually, for the first time ever, we are introducing my brother Teja Dash to the Chief Concerns aspect of things. Some of you guys know I do the 76ers show with him, but it's good to have him on the Chiefs world with us. So we're seeing a lot of your comments already, and everyone's got a mixed bag, actually. Mixed bag on Twitter, but right now on our Chief Concerns chat here, it doesn't seem like everyone's that enthralled and thrilled with our King Felix pick. So before we get into that, just kind of the draft kind of went pretty much chalk. Everything we saw, like that everyone thought the way it was going to go, except for Nolan Smith falling, and certain other guys falling, but pretty much where the wide receivers went. They went early in that 20 range. But obviously, reports of us trying to trade up with Dallas to get obviously a tackle, which I'm going to guess it was right before Anton Harrison went. So I'm going to guess that's maybe where we were going to go. That didn't happen. Jerry Jones, dickhead, kind of said no to that. And then we ended up going to get King Felix. Now, I'm kind of surprised at the mixed bag that I'm seeing in the comments. I'll show them while you guys talk. But usually when we go and get the Missouri or Kansas guy, usually everyone's excited about that. And I'm kind of surprised that we're actually getting that many pissed off fans about this pick. So I'm going to let you guys have the floor. Lance, Teja, what do you guys make of day one of the draft?
Hang out finally with the Super Dash brothers is something that I'm very much excited about. I'm glad that we get to do this.
Me too, Lance.
If I'm gonna
wait, Lance, we can't hear you on the screen.
You can't hear me on the screen.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you through my phone, but not the screen.
Can you hear me now?
No,
that's a problem. Let me
because your mic was working earlier. I don't hear you now. Not on the screen. No.
Okay, so you just see my mouth moving.
Yes.
Okay. Let me restart this stage. You go start it off, bro.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. So we go talk about the actual draft first or our pick first?
You could do the whole shebang.
Draft wise, yeah, I think it did kind of go chalky. I a lot like probably all the viewers out there. I'm a mock draft nerd. I'll admit it. I love doing it. I was faced with this problem quite a lot through my mock drafting. I actually ended up taking Felix most times while mock drafting just because I just didn't love the choices out there. And not that it went exactly like this, but most of the time I was left with pretty much DeJuan Jones and Felix every time. And I like Felix. I like what I read about him. He fits the Spags mold of size, weight. I thought he's a great pick, man. I think I was a big trade back guy, so I wanted that first because I think Felix would have been around a little later. And I see tweets of mine back from like a month and a half ago saying the same thing. I wanted to trade back into the 30s or 40s, to be honest with you, because I think he still would have been there. But if that's your guy, like if you saw something in this draft, people just chose their guy. After like pick 10 or 12 for the most part, all these guys' prospects, the ratings are about the same. It just comes down to preference in the end. So you got your guy. We couldn't trade back, obviously, and we went with Felix. I don't disagree with it at all. I like it, actually.
Yeah, so I was going to start this off by saying, because I don't know if you guys heard me, but first of all, it's great to hang out with Teja for the first time, man. We haven't done this before. I've talked on Twitter. It's good to hang out with both Dash brothers for the first time. To attack this pick, first and foremost for the Chiefs, I think if there was different context leading into this draft that I think fans would feel different about it. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I have seen that people are saying they could have waited. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact they're influenced by Mel Kiper saying that Felix could have potentially been there in the third round. I don't agree with that necessarily. But here's the thing. I think that fans were so hell-bent on getting a wide receiver that when they started to see those guys fall rapidly in the early 20s, they realized that was not going to happen. So no matter where the Chiefs went after that, it was going to be a negative. They could have went and got the best player of the draft at 31, and people would have still found a way to be negative because that is what fans want. And I understand that. Because last season, I was hammering the table about getting a pass rusher. I wanted to see the Chiefs with 12 picks be aggressive and go get Kayvon Thibodeau. I really wanted him. But when I see the Chiefs trade up for a cornerback, a position that we have not seen Brett Veach take anywhere near the first round before last season, I was confused by it. But I think this is the type of pick in Felix and Anudike-Uzomah that I think the fans are going to love quickly. And if anybody paid attention to K-State, which I will admit, I didn't watch a lot of K-State games, but I've watched film of FAU. And I've watched the way this guy is able to get to the quarterback, and not just get to the quarterback, but make lasting impressions in games. This man had 8 forced fumbles. This is a man that gets the ball back in his team's hands. He played a pivotal role in big games. This is a guy that you definitely want to have on this defense because as we've been talking, especially on our show in the Spoken Podcast, something that we know is going to happen very soon is Chris Jones is going to get this extension. So what do you have to do? You have to build around Chris Jones like you would build around Patrick Mahomes to extend their prime years. Yes, these guys can do it essentially on their own, but for how long? People wanted to see the Chiefs get a wide receiver. Why? Because they want to see Patrick Mahomes' job get that much easier. Because last year, although it was great and it was impressive and it was fun to watch, you don't want to make Patrick Mahomes have to do that every single year. Well, Chris Jones is going to be 29 in a couple of months. Do you really want to see him go out there with a bunch of guys? No. You want to go out there and replace eventually Mike Danas and guys of that nature. You want to go and get guys that are young, cheap, and effective. And Felix is one of those guys. He's going to be a type of guy that's going to extend Chris Jones' career, and it's going to make George Karlaftis' job on the other side of the defensive line that much easier. Because you imagine George Karlaftis going into year 2 knowing that he has to go out there and get double-digit sacks? Well, now that you have Omenihu, now that you have Felix, it's going to be a lot easier for George Karlaftis to go and get those numbers if those numbers are there for him. So all in all, I think this is just being perceived very emotionally right now. But I think when people sleep on it and they see what this is actually going to be, and you see how much of a physical freak this guy is in training camp and in preseason and eventually week 1, I think fans are going to really turn their opinions around and realize just how awesome of a pick this is going to ultimately be.
And I know people get caught up in the names on the board, the best available. It's just like it's flashing at you constantly throughout the draft. So you get this in your head that we need him. He's the answer to our prayers. He's going to solve our problems. I know people got caught up with Nolan Smith, but dude, he's 6'2", 236. He's the size of some receivers in this draft. If you look at a lot of edge rankings, he wasn't even ranked in edge. He wasn't even ranked at a 4-3 D end. He's ranked at an outside linebacker. He's tiny.
Yeah.
And people don't even know about that. How many sacks did he have last year? He had 3 sacks. And Anudike had almost 3 times the amount of sacks as he did last year. He had more forced fumbles than he had sacks last year. Than Nolan Smith had sacks. I think Nolan Smith's a flashy name. He tore up the combine. He ran really fast because he weighs about the size of like a slot receiver. So that's why he ran fast. There's a reason for it that he ran fast. Like I said before, I mocked Anudike a lot. In the beginning, I saw he was always available at 31. So I was like, all right, let me do more reading about this guy because it looks like he's probably going to be one of the guys that's out there and we need a D end. Yeah. So incredible motor. He was always following the ball, always following the play. They said his bend is probably the best in the draft for edge rushers. His repertoire is incredible. Like he has so many different pass rush moves. But that's also what works against him too, because they say when he pass rushes, he almost makes the plan before he pass rushes every time. He knows which one he's going to do. So when the O-lineman, when the tackle counters him really well, he kind of is stuck there because he had that plan, and beyond that, it was nothing. Yeah. So they said just as he gets more polished, as he becomes a pass rusher and more experienced, he doesn't have a lot of that. That's one of his knocks too. Very inexperienced pass rusher. Same with Nolan Smith. He'll get that as he has more time. Counter moves, that would become big. Other things to go to in his bag when the tackle stops him. But they say he's polished beyond his years as far as his experience compared to what he's shown. So he's got room to grow. Lastly, I watch a lot of PFF. PFF guys rated him, I think, at a 2nd round pick, by the way. So this 5th round pick's nonsense. And most reputable sites rated him at a 2nd round pick. So the 4th and 5th is ridiculous. their biggest knocks on him were run defense. He spends more time kind of tracking the ball and tracking the play rather than just attacking the ball carrier. But also that he does almost everything really good, just nothing great. So we're at pick 31, guys. We won the Super Bowl. Enjoy it. That's what happens, though. You get guys who have flaws. So,
Well, and Teja, I want to add something to that real quick, Marcus, before we move on. Yeah. The thing I want to also address is the fact that because a lot of us were of the belief the Chiefs were going to probably trade up into the first round, and we saw reports that were saying that they were trying to trade with the Cowboys, I believe, at 26. And the Cowboys said, "Nah, man, we're good. We want this guy, and we're good." So the Chiefs put in the effort. So considering that, along with the fact that now, if you want to look on the bright side of this, the Chiefs still have 9 picks to mess with. So they went and got edge, which we knew was a big need for this team moving forward, and you keep all 9 other picks. So given what the scenarios were for the Chiefs, and like Marcus said, there was a lot of aggressive moves early on that, like Teja said, the Chiefs had the literal last pick of the first round. This is something that I think we need to understand, guys, that this is as good as it's going to get. Because if you look last year, a lot of fans love George Karlaftis. Guys, he was only 1 pick earlier than what we just got Felix in. So it's not like this is some crazy, what the hell are you thinking? This is actually something that makes a ton of sense once you think about it. That's why I said I think this is one of those you got to sleep on it type of situations because of so many fans. And trust me when I say so many fans were hell-bent on the Chiefs getting a wide receiver in the first round. And once you saw those guys start to get picked apart or picked away, you knew that wasn't going to happen. Same with offensive tackle. I know Marcus and I have talked about this. Jason Dunn's very much about that. He wanted an offensive tackle, and I did too. But when you look at this draft class, you realize there was only about 2 or 3 guys at most, maybe 4, that were even first-round talents on offensive tackle. This just wasn't a good tackle draft, and the unfortunate thing is no draft is created equally, just like no need for each team is created equally. So the Chiefs had a need, and he just wasn't there in this draft. Maybe they find a guy in the mid-rounds or late rounds. I have the Chiefs actually taking a stab at one guy in the 7th round. But here's the thing about where the Chiefs are situated. They have maybe the best GM in football that knows how to get guys late in these late rounds that end up becoming something. We saw it with Trey Smith. We've seen it with Isaiah Pacheco. Who's to say he can't find some guy, some offensive tackle late in the draft that ends up becoming something? I mean, hell, Andrew Wiley was some undrafted guy, and he just started at right tackle in the Super Bowl. So I believe that Brett Veach is better at his job than most people believe, and I think the first round gets so much attention, we forget there's 9 other picks for Brett Veach to mess with.
Yeah, and 2 of those picks are 2 picks in the 4th round. So I mean, I think the 3rd and 4th rounds where a lot of teams make their money, and especially if you look at our history in the 3rd and 4th round, Jerry Sneed was in that crop. Yeah, I mean, just looking at it, I mean, of the edge rushes that were available, so he had 3 big needs. You can throw a receiver in there too. So you got DT, tackle, D end, and wide receiver. Throw a wide receiver in there. Clark Dunlap gone, Omenahu in. So you still had one. There was still one other piece that we needed to kind of improve on, or at least just replace the Clark and Dunlap. Okay, there you go. King Felix comes in there, and I'm not even gonna try with his name. I'm like that's gonna be my thing. I'm just gonna call him King Felix. I'm not even gonna deal with trying to pronounce that. So
give it a whirl, man. Come on.
Uzomah, come on.
It's midnight. Let's go crazy. Come on.
Not right now. Later on, when I have some of the offseason to kind of to rehearse it to myself in the mirror. But yeah, so Omenahu and Felix in for Clark and Dunlap are right off the bat. That right there is we've gotten significantly younger. Obviously, Dunlap was a guy we brought in at the a vet presence, but Clark, I know you're a big Clark guy, Lance. Great, he was solid for us in the playoffs, but like he really never lived up to that contract that he got. Omenahu, solid. King Felix, I mean, we're going to see. But
a lot of people have Omenahu kicking inside on 3rd downs too, so you definitely need another D end out there.
Yeah, yeah, and then you also we get to day 2 and day 3. We're going to get into what we want to see tomorrow. But I mean, at that point, we checked off pretty much the edge. Now we go to DT, and that's where we're going to have to go to help. You mentioned Saunders is gone. We have Derrick Nottie is the only other DT next to freaking Jones. So, like, that's a big issue. So, like, we need to stay – what JD and I said in the show this week, we need to stay in the trenches in this draft. This draft needs to be – I know we're big on receiver, but we need to heavily be in the trenches. I mean, and who knows? All these receivers went. We had what's his name? Rashee Rice. We brought him in for a visit. He's still on the board out there. We can easily go – The receivers, outside of everything I've read about this class, outside of like the top like two, or outside of JSN, everybody else was kind of within a couple tiers of each other.
No.
And now we have the second and third round. We can go get some of these guys, but there's still a big name that JD and I talk about a lot, and Lance talks about him a lot too. Is DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, the Ravens, who became a big name to go get them, they went and drafted Zay Flowers. So I think they might be done with the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes. Buffalo went and got Dalton Kincaid. It's another weapon they have over there. Is that potentially, are they done with Hopkins? So I think the GM said they're not even going to trade him anymore. As of tonight, as I said, that it's not looking likely of trading Hopkins. So reports 2 weeks ago, Breer said they were going to cut him. So if that does happen, and with the way we didn't force. The one thing I will say this, I'm happy about this King Felix because it fulfills a need, but I was so happy we didn't succumb to the pressure of fans just wanting a receiver. And I was so scared because I saw a mock. I think Schrager had a mock today that we were going to draft Jalen Hyatt at the end of the first round. I was like, oh my God, please don't.
No.
I was so scared that was going to happen. I don't know about you guys. Obviously, I trust Veach, and maybe some people who don't trust Veach completely, but I was just scared that we were just going to make a flashy pick because we were hosting the draft and we go get a skill player because that's what everybody wants. Did anything cross your mind? Anything crazy like that crossed your mind when that 31st pick came up? Like, please to God, I hope it's not blank. Did anything come up to you guys?
I'll say this, and I mean this. And Marcus, you can show the text messages. I was not worried about the Chiefs taking a wide receiver at 31 because it wasn't going to happen. Because the guys that were worth a first-round pick at wide receiver were not going to be there at 31. And I don't know what Schrager was smoking, but I'll take 2 hits of it if he thinks that Hyatt would have been the right pick at 31, because that's some good weed that he was smoking on that one. But here's my thing. When it comes to the wide receiver position, I'll say this, Marcus. The Chiefs are going to draft somebody at some point. In fact, I had the Chiefs originally drafting a wide receiver in the 4th round. There was a lot of trades. I had the Chiefs trading up in the 1st round, so it was a whole spaghetti situation, but they still have those 2 4th-round picks. I think that's realistically where the Chiefs are going to go. I know you mentioned DT. I have the Chiefs taking a defensive tackle at 95th overall. And this might shock some people because of how good the tight end depth is in this draft, and because of the fact that Travis Kelce will be 34 in October. I have the Chiefs taking a tight end at 63rd overall, which is ironic because in 2013, they took Travis Kelce 63rd overall. So it'd be kind of poetic to see that happen. So I think the next couple of picks, you're going to be really impressed by what Brett Veach is able to find in those mid rounds. And it's poetic, and it's quite honestly on brand because that's what Brett Veach does. Like, he's landed some good guys early in the draft, but it's usually the mid rounds and the late rounds. You're like, damn, that dude was still around. How did Brett Veach find that dude? And that's what I think you're going to see in this one. But yes, they will draft a receiver at some point in the next 3 or 4 picks. I wanted, and I've been trying to prepare Chiefs fans for the last couple of months to be realistic about this situation, because you saw last year the Chiefs had not 1 but 2 first-round picks. And that was a draft in which if you were going to trade up for a wide receiver, you would do it in that one. You have George Pickens, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson. There are guys that you can go up and get and be aggressive with your 12 picks, especially when you just traded Tyreek Hill a month before. So that would have been the draft. They did that. They didn't do that. In fact, they didn't even go offense with their 2 first-round picks. So that's why I was so confident that the Chiefs, if they were going to go offense in the first round, it was going to be tackle, and that was only if they were going to trade up 10 to 15 spots. And that's on the lower side. That's on the conservative side. They probably would have had to go way further up. When it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, I've been telling people, and I know that people think it's some pipe dream, but guys, it's not. Because the Cardinals have been handling the situation as bad as any franchise could. They've been asking for the 2nd-round pick. No one was going to give that to them. If it was going to happen, it would have already happened. Now they're saying they're not going to trade him. Yeah, because they're going to designate him for a June 1st cut now. Unless they're going to be willing to give him up for pennies on the dollar. And the Chiefs have played this smart. And the Chiefs' name continues to be in the mix of it because the Chiefs are interested in DeAndre Hopkins. He is a difference maker. The Chiefs do not have a difference maker at wide receiver right now as far as a veteran is concerned. Does Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore have promise? Yes. But those 2 guys are guys that we don't know what they are yet. The Chiefs don't have a sure thing at wide receiver that's good enough to move the needle. And again, with Travis Kelce's age, you have to get that guy. It's a perfect storm. So as bad as it was for the Chiefs not getting an offensive tackle in a very thin offensive tackle draft, it's equally as good in free agency / trades when it comes to getting a top 10 difference-making wide receiver because the Chiefs happen to be in the market at that time. So I think it's going to happen. The Ravens, I think they did cancel themselves out. And I think the Bills, if he's a free agent, can go out there and try to outbid. But I think the Chiefs know that they have the upper hand right now with draft capital if they have to ultimately trade for him because they still have the 9 picks. And they still have, what is it? I think the Bills have 5 picks left. So they can't trade for him realistically. And their cap structure is even worse than the Chiefs is. With Von Miller's horrific contract, with Josh Allen making substantially great money. I mean, there's a lot of things that team's paying for right now. Veteran-wise, the Chiefs just simply aren't. So I think that the Chiefs are going to end up getting DeAndre Hopkins. And I think it's more evident now more than ever.
We did get another receiver, Lance. It took a few months to get. We got Tony eventually. So
yeah,
that receiver you were talking about in the draft, we I guess we felt like we did need another one. We were like, shoot, we probably didn't get your guy OBJ. We were like, now we need to get Tony. I didn't mention OBJ at least once. Come on.
Fair enough.
It's funny you mentioned that about receivers and how like there was only a couple guys, or I'm sorry, tackle, a couple guys with first round grades. It's kind of how most of the draft was. Most positions had like a couple of guys that were more of the elite, highest tier, and the next like 10 to 15 players are so close. I actually had specifically on Edge, I tweeted out like a month or so ago, it was how the top like 4 players, these are 2 different draft grade sites, top 4 players had a difference of 6 point or 5.8, right? The next like 7 players are separated by 0.04. So it just shows you the top end so high, and then it just drops, and then everyone's just crammed in there. So at that point, it just becomes scheme specific. Like who do you want, right? I mean, Felix was the guy for us.
Yeah, I'm seeing here. I'm honestly surprised about how many people trust Mel Kiper as the word of God. I'm just going through the comments. We talked about before we got on. Mel Kiper, Lance brought this one up. He thought Jimmy Clausen was the next big thing. And for those of you Chiefs fans, I was one of them who rode Mel Kiper's word for this one. When we drafted Ricky Stanzi, I think it was a 6th or 7th round, and he compared to Tom Brady. So that's Mel Kiper, guys. The guy just throws shit at the board and whatever sticks. And hey, you can point to
Levis was his favorite quarterback of the draft.
Exactly. That poor guy. Can we just say right now, like a moment of silence for that guy? Poor dude.
Kiper's like the quintessential, like, my guy. Like, he loves his guys. He wants to be right more than anything. And that just goes beyond everything else.
I'm pretty sure that he was saying that originally, like a week ago, that he saw Levis going number 1 in some scenarios. He's like, I could see him. He's the prototypical quarterback. He talks real fast. Like, I thought I heard him say that. So don't quote me on that, but there's some massive L's going to Kiper and Levis tonight, man. Big time.
Yeah. And also Kiper and that dude on Reddit who was pretty much betting his like mortgage on Will Levis to be the number 1 pick in the draft. It was, I don't know if he's going back and forth. It's hilarious. He said, bet on it. And everyone's like, how do you know? And I know his family. He's telling everybody he's going number 1. It's like, okay. And then, and now I just read that they're trying to ban him, trying to ban that account from Reddit because he was so
damage done. You can't do it again.
Oh man, come on. He was Levis' second cousin trying to boost his draft stock.
Hey, if Virginia allowed betting on like the player stuff like that, like the draft picks, I would have thrown like $5 on it. Why not? Okay, so look at the draft board for tomorrow. So tomorrow's 2nd and 3rd round. Big names to highlight that list. So obviously the quarterbacks, Levis and Hooker, everyone's keen on that. And I thought a team was going to trade. Teja and I were talking about this. We thought a team was going to trade back in to the 1st round to get that 5th-year option.
I was hoping for that.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen. So obviously
that's how much no one likes Levis right there. That shows you.
Yeah.
They don't even give a crap about the 5th-year option. They're, okay.
Yeah, I think one report was Baker Mayfield 2.0 is what one unnamed source compared Will Levis to. So
damn.
Yeah.
That bad, huh?
That's rough. That's rough. They see him that way. But one of so yeah, Joey Porter Jr. And Brian Branch are 2 guys who everyone's talking about. Obviously, we're at the end of the 2nd round.
Yeah, we're not sniffing that.
We're not getting that. Tomorrow, I know Lance, you kind of hinted at what your mock draft has your mock changed at all because of what happened tonight? And for tomorrow's picks, where do you guys want to go with what based on what you're seeing right now with the availability out there? Where do you guys want to go with the 2nd and 3rd round picks?
I haven't budged at all. I still very much want to see the Chiefs add to the tight end position. And the biggest reason why, obviously, like I said about Travis Kelce's age, but most importantly is because of the fact that the Chiefs love running 12 personnel. And I think that if you can add talent, Brett Veach has always been a guy that's been known to double down at a position if he really wants to. And I think the tight end is a very important position, given the fact also, something to look out for is the fact the Chiefs don't currently have a fullback. I know that sounds funny to say in today's NFL, but Andy Reid's one of those few coaches that actually likes having a fullback. And I'm wondering if maybe he kind of substitutes that with adding just more depth to the tight end position, because we saw Blake Bell when he got back, he was playing some fullback here and there, and they were kind of moving guys around. Jody Fortson, as talented as he is, and we all love him here, the problem is he doesn't stay healthy, and sometimes he just disappears on the field. Noah Gray is only 23, 24 years old, and I think he's got a lot of promise. He's a good catcher and good route runner, but I think the Chiefs can get better at that position, and I think that they can continue. Now, you're not going to expect to get another Travis Kelce, obviously, but 10 years ago, were we expecting to get another Tony Gonzalez? That's the thing you got to think about is the Chiefs have been able to draft tight end pretty well, just like running back and edge rush and things of that nature. So I would like to see the Chiefs go after a tight end. I think Laporta is still available. I think he's the kind of guy that I would really like to look at. And when, like I said, when it comes to this draft as a whole, not to get ahead of it, but we're talking about the mid rounds, because like I said, at 95, I want to see the Chiefs go right back to defensive line, because one of the few areas in this draft that it is very heavy in and very, very skilled at is defensive line. And I think that you're going to see the Chiefs go right back to that. I think that before they get to the hundreds, the Chiefs are going to go back on the defensive side. If you remember before tonight, 9 of the Chiefs' last 16 picks have been on the defensive side, because I think they share the mentality of you draft defense and you pay for offense. And if you look at this defense right now, only Chris Jones is making any money. I mean, look at even like Drew Tranquil. He got, a 1-year deal that has incentives all the way up to like $5 million, I think. Mike Edwards has incentives, I think, takes him to $4 or $5 million. I mean, none of these veterans outside of Chris Jones are making anything, and everybody else is on rookie deals. Yep. So I think the Chiefs are going to be aggressive again and stockpile more defensive talent in this draft. And I think, like I said, they will take skill position. I do think the tight end is a position they're going to look at because of just how deep it is, and they'd be moronic to not take a guy if he's sitting there at 63, or if they feel they need to trade up now and be a little aggressive in the second or third round. But I do think defensive tackle, like you mentioned earlier, Marcus, I think that is a position the Chiefs are looking at very, very closely, man, because to your point, they don't have a lot there right now, man. They have a bunch of guys. It's very thin up front, man. If the Chiefs want to continue to be that stellar defense that they actually were in some aspects last season, they have to continue to stockpile talent there, and this is the best way of doing it, man.
Yeah, if I was weighing on one thing on that, and I mean this respectfully, but I was very upset to see Derrick Nottie back with us this year. When we brought him back this offseason, I was like, oh my God. It's that one guy, like there's every year, like in every sport team, there's always that one guy that's like, I really don't want to see him back with the team. Like
yeah.
Sorensen was that guy. I was like, okay, he was great and all, but like I'm happy to see him go. Like I'm glad he found a new home, like that kind of thing. But Nottie came back. Said, okay, I mean, hey, he's fine, but like I watched too much film with JD last year to just know that Nottie wasn't it. That's why we ended up bringing in the old guy, Brandon Williams. It was like, okay, when Brandon Williams came, what happened? There was like, we actually saw push up front. It's like, whoa. I mean, what were we not getting from the other guys? I mean, Saunders solid, but Nottie was consistently just getting blown back. I'm upset he's still on the team, but hey, this is actually a decently deep DT class, so we might actually be able to get some guys out of this, and maybe Nottie's not with the team, but that's one guy. I mean that respectfully. I'm not meaning to trash the guy, and Nottie's what hasn't been it for us.
He served his purpose. I agree with you.
Yeah, you mean the day you were happy when certain guys get signed, like the day D-Rob got signed?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. When the Raiders went out and got him last year, yes, I was very happy about that.
Like, good God, keep us away from ourselves. Like, we want to re-sign him. It's like I like when other teams jump in and are like, "Sorry, Chiefs, you can't get him back again." Like, oh man,
rats.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of my mocks for us are still alive. What I usually did when I got Felix in round 1. I'm a huge Keanu Benton fan. A D tackle, badass wrestler, doesn't really have a weakness, can rush the passer, can stuff the run. Would love him next to Chris Jones. I think if you're going to stack the D line, you do it that way. Yeah. The other expensive guy we have on defense would be Reed, Lance.
Yeah.
So I also don't. At first, I was like, God, we're not going to go safety, right? We just signed one. We have one. We drafted one last year. When Reed's number starts jumping up there with the kind of bloated salaries we have, the top heavy salaries, especially if we give Jones a lot of money, the more I think about it, the more I think Reed, how many more years does he have left with us? I don't know.
It was a 3-year deal, wasn't it? It was a 3-year deal last
No,
year.
I'm not saying like when his contract runs out, when we're just like, we need to go younger, we need to go cheaper there. Do we really need him? Is he essential? When you have guys like Jones and Mahomes taking up such a large part of your salary, the tough decisions come when it's like having a really small space to keep like clothes in, right? You got to be really picky after a while. Like, do I need that shirt? Do I need those shoes? Like, what do I really need here, right? I think Reed is one of those dollar amounts that might become expendable after a while. So is safety crazy? I don't think so. I think we could see that too. I wouldn't be surprised. I do like some. I want a receiver too. I want a receiver. I do like Rashee Rice. I think he would be a guy I would take in the second. Although in a lot of different analyst mocks, they have him going anywhere from like second to third and fourth. I've even seen, which is I thought would be late. We obviously liked him. I think we like the bigger receivers. I think that's obvious. We haven't really replaced that Juju intermediary short route guy with a big body. Hearing Reed talk about Juju, it just shows me that he wants a guy who can do everything well, has a big body, nice possession, can get some yak, but like just a bigger receiver who can eat up the middle and like the short routes. Rice would be that, right? Xavier Hutchinson would be that. Another guy, Iowa State, like a 3rd round pick. Jonathan Mingo is a popular guy that people like in the 2nd and 3rd round. I like some of the small dartier receivers too. Like I like Nathaniel Dell, Tank Dell.
He loves Nathaniel.
Oh, his route running is crazy. Just watching his one-on-ones in practices, they're just crazy, man. He puts on like a show with his feet. I guess if you want a tight end, if you want to trade up for Mayer or Musgrave, who would be the more like pass catching threat, I guess. And then there are a lot of DBs, by the way. So like if we do want to do that, we can. And I guess tackle will be the other one, but I don't know. You're looking at Bergeron or Steen in the 3rd, maybe, or Duncan, which I know some people aren't a big fan of, but that's another tackle prospect we can go after.
So, Lance, who were the names that you have tomorrow? Did you say the names of the guys you want tomorrow?
Yeah, so this is due to being late at night. Musgrave is a guy from Oregon that I'm actually big on, and Laporta, I like him as the tight end as well. But I think that because of the fact the tight end position is so damn deep in this draft, that I feel like they're going to be guys that you don't even think of. Like, remember last season when the wide receivers started going, and then in the 2nd round, Chiefs selected Sky Moore. I'm like, damn, I didn't even realize Sky Moore was still sitting there. It's because of the fact the wide receiver position was so deep that some of these really talented players at that position kind of fall or slip through the cracks, and then, they're still there. I think that's what's going to happen at tight end. That is based upon the scenario that I think that the Chiefs go tight end there. And defensive tackle, Mr. Wrestler, like our guy Teja was just talking about, is the guy that I actually was looking at as well. I love his background. I love the fact of his versatility. I love the fact that he's just a brawler. That's something that the Chiefs absolutely are just craving right now. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs went that route first before, because I have it 95 as opposed to 63. I wouldn't be shocked if it was flipped, because of the fact those guys might not be there at 95 because of just how talented he is. And so, yeah, I definitely think that's going to be the scenario. So those are the names that come to mind immediately, because those are the guys that I honestly didn't think were still going to be sitting here. I thought that there would be 2 or 3 tight ends taken in the 1st round. Mayer's still sitting there as well. I think it's Meyer or Mayer. They're both there. He's still sitting there as well. So it was funny as hell, just a little side note, to see the panel on ESPN talking for like 10 straight minutes about he was going to go to the Cowboys because he's just like Jason Witten. And then they go for defensive tackle, and they just all kind of get quiet for a second. It's like, that's surprising. So that was pretty funny. So yeah, I think those are going to be the positions the Chiefs do aim for, because I think those are places that, one, you have a big need at defensive tackle, and tight end is a position that you can really double down on and just make this offense even more impossible to guard.
I noticed you guys didn't really talk about tackle at all in this next round. I know DeJuan Jones. I don't know if he'll last there. I've seen some but I have seen some mocks, and obviously mocks are mocks. They're not the real thing, obviously. But I've seen some have him going late 2nd. Some even have him in the 3rd round. And I know right tackle is something that we might have guys in house. I'm not the biggest Lucas Niang believer. I do think Darian Kennard can be a right tackle for us. We've had him on the show before. He talked about when they drafted him, they said, hey, we want you to be the right tackle, but we want you to learn all the positions. But we're drafting you to be a right tackle. But with Reed and they like the flexibility with their guys in the offensive line, learn it all, right? And then another one, I think someone just mentioned it here, Thuney. Another guy who's got a big cap hit. He's going to be getting older.
Yeah.
There's a lot of guards still out there. I believe the dude from Florida is still out there, the number one guard in the draft. So what do you guys think about that? Because I'm not really hearing offensive line from you guys as far as the second. Because I want to say the offensive tackle, something that JD kind of preached as far as his day one thing. He wanted that to be the day one thing. Him and I were texting. He loves the King Felix pick, by the way. But him and I were texting when as his O-line were being taken. We were really surprised Darnell Wright went top 10. That was just we thought we could get him. I think it was anywhere between 15 to like 28. That's probably the range we thought we were going to go. But then when he goes top 10, it was like, wow, okay. So obviously the versatility, everyone's seeing that with him there. But what do you guys want to do with that right tackle position? Because it seems like you guys aren't even, as far as second day, you guys don't have that as a.
I mentioned Duncan, but I know a lot of people aren't high on him.
JD's not the biggest fan.
I know he's not. I mentioned Duncan, and then Steen in the third or fourth round is another guy. As far as possible guard future, I've been a big fan of Andrew Voorhees from USC throughout the draft process. I know he tore his ACL, but that's the kind of pick that Veach swoops in and gets him much later than he would have gone. Redshirt him, put him down for a year, have him compete the next year, and he also played right tackle in a pinch at USC as well. So I wouldn't discount that either. Bergeron, you have some options. It just comes down to, so let me ask you a question, Marcus. Who do you have more confidence in starting a whole season, Noddy or Kennard / Niang?
Well, we've seen Noddy do it. We've
seen.
You
said you see him get pushed back every single time.
Right. It's average play. Niang can't stay. We've tried with Niang, just can't stay healthy, and it's weird too because JD and I talked about the similar builds that he had to Orlando Brown. It's like the heavy up top, but very skinny, like kind of legs, like what do we call it? A candy apple with legs is kind of how we described that build that Orlando Brown and Niang build. I think that Kennard's got the capability of doing it. He also had injury concerns coming out of college too. It's just that there's a reason why we both have said we'd like to draft another tackle. I just think outside DeJuan Jones, I think you're getting to a point where you're getting guys like Niang types. You're getting guys that may not pan out. Like
very flawed prospects, yeah.
I think DeJuan Jones is one of those guys who he's still raw and new to football, too. That's the one thing a lot of people don't even know about him. The guy's picked up football as like a junior in high school. The guy's just a basketball player who just picked that up. Shows how athletic he is. I love watching his clips from high school playing basketball. But I think that's one guy, if we were to make any kind of action, make any kind of moves that we thought we were going to make today, I think trading up to going to get DeJuan Jones would be the one I would make, because I do think that the tackle spot is just talking about Kennard and as much as I like Kennard, it's too much of a question mark. And what JD and I always say is the number one route every year should be to protect Patrick Mahomes. And if we have a giant question mark at the right side, a guy Niang who can't stay healthy, Kennard who's a question mark, we don't really know. But again, we have started rookies on the O-line before, but we started a freaking 6th round pick at Trey Smith, and look at that turned out. I don't know. It's just a question mark to me on that right tackle spot, which I think that needs to be a thing. And also, JD, this is why JD wanted to go get left tackle in the first round, for the fact that Jawan Taylor, he can still play right tackle, but based on the way this first round went, you kind of have to go with the original plan, which is putting him at left tackle and then maybe going to get your right tackle. But Lance, you're making a face. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you're talking about, man, because of the fact this is what I've been preaching about Jawan Taylor, the concern with there. The thing about it, though, is that I've had to come to realize that you don't pay guys $60 million guaranteed to not play the most important position on the offensive line. I think that Jawan Taylor is going to be the Chiefs' left tackle this year, and that does concern me because he's played 15 snaps over the last 4 years at left tackle. Cam Robinson went down for a series, and he still wasn't being the guy to replace him at left tackle. If he's capable of it, you would have thought they would have put him over there, but they didn't do that a lot. So that is a concern. And obviously, I was open-minded to the fact that if Juwan Taylor ends up playing left tackle like he plays right tackle, then the Chiefs actually underpaid him, because that's an incredible steal the Chiefs got with the $60 million guaranteed. But I do believe he's going to play left. And here's the thing about why I made peace with the fact the Chiefs were not going to go after tackle early and often in this draft, is because of the fact that, one, the draft class, like I said, and maybe DeJuan Jones is the guy the Chiefs are still looking at, and maybe they do entertain that thought if he happens to fall and he's close enough and they trade up for him. I don't envision that to happen, but it's also because of the fact that I think the Chiefs almost have a confidence borderlining arrogance. And what I mean by that is I think they believe in their coaching staff so much that they feel that they can get the best out of Lucas Niang and Darian Kennard, Prince Tega Winogo, anybody that plays over there, because of what just happened last season. You look at what Andrew Wiley was a journeyman guard originally. I mean, he was, if I'm not mistaken, he literally was undrafted, picked up by the Colts, I think in like 2017, and was a guard. And the Chiefs just picked him up and ended up getting him at right tackle, and he played well enough for them to win a Super Bowl. And I think the Chiefs look at Andy Heck, their offensive line, their coach, and they're thinking, this guy can get whatever he wants to get out of whoever we put out there. And yes, the Joe Thuney thing is a concern, things of that nature, but I think he's under contract till 2025, and the Chiefs are nowhere near ready to move off him because he's still at the top of his game. I think he's 30 years old now, but he's durable as hell. He plays through injuries. He's maybe the best left guard in the league, if not one of the three best. And I think the Chiefs look at right tackle and they say, we have two guys that can fight for the position. Lucas Niang has been unreliable health-wise, but this is also his contract year, if I'm not mistaken, because he was drafted in 2020. So this is the opportunity for him to really show what he's worth. And then usually, more times than not, you get the best out of a player. So I think the Chiefs are looking at it and they're betting on themselves, and they're saying that they can get something out of these 2-3 guys that they currently have on. I still think the Chiefs are going to take a tackle. I do think at some point it's going to happen. But I think it's going to be more of a stab, more of just a flyer pick, and they see what they can get out of it. But if there's, like I said, guys, and I don't want to oversimplify this or make it sound like everything's honky-dory, they do have a need there. But if there was a GM that could find a guy, a diamond in the rough late in the draft, it's going to be Brett Veach. He's going to find that guy that's out there. And so I've been sitting back and just kind of being a little more relaxed because I agree, and the Chiefs definitely agree about the mentality you got to have about protecting Patrick Mahomes, because you guys saw after 2020, what did the Chiefs go and do? Completely rehauled their offensive line in one offseason. I've never seen that before. In my entire life of watching football, a team completely rehauled their offensive line, and it worked. And I think that Andy Reid, who's been notorious for drafting in the trenches on both sides of the ball, I don't think that he's avoiding the position at all. I just think they look at the realities of what's given to them in this draft class, and they probably feel more comfortable, honestly, and more confident in what they have and what Andy Heck can get out of those guys.
Teja, any thoughts on that?
Another couple guys too. Blake Freeland out of BYU, who tore up the combine. He was a combine freak. So, I kind of do agree with you though. I think it will be more of like a 4th or 5th rounder, not a 2nd or 3rd. Like the guy everyone loves out of Old Dominion, Nick Saldiveri. That's another guy who keeps coming up too. More of like a project guy to maybe compete with Niang and Kennard. I think overall though, I think we go, if I have to guess, I think we definitely go defense with our 2nd pick. I think receivers are 3rd rounder is my guess, but I think we go either D tackle or DB. I want Benton, but I think DB. Well, there's no safety taken, right?
Yeah.
None. Right. And even some of the cornerbacks fell. Like Gonzalez fell big time. I think DB there's a lot of value in the 2nd round. So, Edwards was a 1-year contract, right? We lost Thornhill. Reed's going to have a bloated contract. I wouldn't put it past us to go safety or a tweener cornerback safety. Like Cam Smith from SC, Stevenson from Miami, the cornerback, Antonio Johnson from Texas A&M. These are guys who are kind of expected to be there around that 63.
And Teja, you got to remember, L'Jarius Sneed's on his contract year too.
Yeah. And we don't want, we want leverage in that deal, have another guy ready to step in if we have to trade him, right?
That's why I had the Chiefs taking a corner at 134 because they took L'Jarius Sneed at 138. So
I just think, I think corner and DB is not, it's not being looked at enough as a possible option. I think because we've spent money there recently, but that doesn't mean anything in the NFL anymore. You guys get signed 1 year, they're on the trade block 6 months later, man. Like, look at Allen Robinson. He was their prize free agency acquisition last year, and they pretty much salary dumped his ass. Okay.
Yeah.
And ate the salary and got rid of him.
Yep.
So I just don't think there's any position. We have too many guys on cheap contracts and one guy taking up like 20 to 30% of our salary. So anyone can almost be gone year to year. The fact that Chris Jones, you can search for Chris Jones trade block on your Twitter and you'll get 1 million results for it, just shows you that anyone outside of 15 can go at any moment, even your second best player on your team. Well, Kelce wouldn't go anywhere either. Okay, so your third best player on your team. But it's crazy to think that. So you really have to just load up on the positions that on a 1 to 3 year window might not be there. Not just this year. You can't just look at this year as a problem. That's why people said, oh, maybe guard, because are they going to pay Creed Humphrey? Are they going to pay Trey Smith? Tooney's making a lot of money soon. So it's like, even if they picked a guard, if Osiris, that's what you were talking about earlier, Mark, guard. If he lasts to us somehow, would I be shocked if we took him? No, not at all. I wouldn't. And I wouldn't say I hate it either, because it all comes with a plan. I trust our management, right? I trust our management. I trust our guys. So at the end of the day, if they pick someone, it's because they see something coming that we don't know is happening behind the scenes yet.
Yeah. And one thing I will say, which everyone I've kind of seen in the chat here, kind of is Justin Ross back and forth. I know on our show we've got a chance to talk about. I know you've touched on it on your show as well, Lance and Teja. Which I want to ask you guys' opinion. Mahomes talked highly of Justin Ross a couple weeks ago after this whole Texas workouts and stuff. Really, he's only had the one. I mean, he had the spinal stuff, but then he had the foot surgery. Because people still think he hasn't come back and played football. I was having a conversation with someone the other day saying, well, he goes, well, he can't take a hit. Well, I was like, actually, he did come back from the spinal thing. His thing when he came back was the foot injury, and that's a lot of people think he hasn't played since he had that whole spinal fusion thing he had. Do you think? My question is to kind of tie back to the draft. If we don't draft a receiver tomorrow, and we go into day 3 and we haven't drafted a receiver round 5, 6, we get to that point. Do you think there is actual legitimacy to Mahomes hyping up Justin Ross? Because one thing I have seen from people is like, well, Mahomes hypes up everyone. Look what he did. He talked about Josh Gordon. He hyped up Josh Gordon. There's another one. Yeah, he hyped up Cornell Powell too before. He's hyped up a lot of those receivers in the past. Doesn't really necessarily mean these guys are this is actually a thing. What do you guys think there's anything legitimacy to this Justin Ross stuff versus Mahomes just being a good teammate and trying to uplift his guy?
Well, I think Teja is going to agree with me on this, and I want to speak for him. Patrick is the ultimate teammate. He's never going to say anything that's going to leave you with any doubt. He's never going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, well, I don't know, man. The jury's kind of out on Justin Ross. I mean, he's been injured a lot. Like, he's never going to say anything even close to that. He's always going to uplift his guys, and I appreciate that about him. But that doesn't necessarily mean that there's a reality that follows those words. I mean, let's be real. Justin Ross is a really big-time talent. This guy was good in college. Played for Clemson. That's a high standard. That's a high bar. But to your point, Marcus, when he came back from that injury, he wasn't the same player. And if I'm not mistaken, he hasn't played real football in over 2 years. So I am open-minded to the idea that Justin Ross can become a contributor to this team. I'm not sitting here throwing dirt on the kid and buying a tombstone from him. I'm not sitting here saying he can't become something. But I don't have any reason to believe that he is going to become that something. But primarily for the fact that also there are guys on this offense currently that are just going to simply get more targets and more share of the offense and snap counts. So he's already way behind in that regard. Because we all know that the Chiefs invested, as my dude Teja said earlier, about how The Chiefs traded multiple picks to get Kadarius Toney. They took Sky Moore in the second round. Travis Kelce is going to get 150 plus targets every single year. Where does Justin Ross fit in that? And if he's given his opportunity, do we have any faith or belief that he's going to be able to physically withstand the rigors of the NFL level? I mean, he was banged up in college. Do you really think he's going to last in the league? And I hate to be the negative guy here, but I got to bring the realities to the situation because Patrick Mahomes gave me the opportunity to do so because he ain't doing it himself. I want to believe something's there. I just don't think, I have no reason to believe it's going to be there. That's my whole point. And I don't think that Justin Ross is changing anything in the Chiefs or Patrick Mahomes' mind as to how they're going to continue to build this team, and more importantly, and more particularly, the wide receiver room. I think he's just one of the guys right now.
Yeah, and I think to that, I think another reality. I don't think Mahomes is lying or anything. I think Mahomes is giving not only the confidence to the fan base and us because we want to hear about the Justin Ross stuff, but I think he's giving confidence to him, to Justin, who's confident, maybe a little down. He hasn't played in 2 years, like you said. Sure. But I think one thing tonight, though, showed was that just because Quinn Johnson and Zay Flowers worked out with us doesn't mean we were going to go out and trade up for those guys.
Exactly. I think we could have
very well could have, but
they were within that range of trading up for.
I think a lot of people were under the impression that we were going to do what we had to do to go get one of those guys because they worked out with Mahomes in Texas. I think tonight just showed that I don't know if it was a giant smoke screen, but maybe it was just they weren't like, okay, like I think this is why I think we're still going to go get Hopkins. I think obviously there's a lot of smoke in there with that whole thing, but I believe that we already have enough young guys, and we always talk about the we want to get younger. Our receiver room is pretty damn young, okay? MVS is the elder statesman in the room. Getting Hopkins would solidify the receiver room. We wouldn't have to think about it. Yeah, we could probably get a guy in day 3, round 4. I'll be happy with that. But I'm just saying, I think we have enough guys to compete for these spots. And I think Justin Ross, as JD said on our show, if Justin Ross can make the roster, that's a successful season. He doesn't have to. There's people out there who actually think he can catch 90 balls for like 1,500 yards. I mean, I think people need to have a little reality check. Just because he was once the number 1 receiver in Clemson with T. Higgins and Renfro, he was the top dog over there, even at a young age. And I hope he gets back to that. But I think realistically, we got to place realistic expectations on him because that's what's fair to him. And I think there's people are just getting a little above themselves with this whole thing. But Teja, what were you going to say?
No, I just think that I'm glad we didn't trade up for one of those guys. I wasn't the biggest. I would have supported QT if we got him, Johnston, but 6'2", 215, and your contested catch rate's 35%. I keep going back to that. When I heard that stat, I was like blown away. I mean, you just don't. What's the point of being 6'2", 215 if you don't play it, right? Flowers is dynamic. He really is. I mean, he's great. I don't think a lot of those receivers are that much better than the next like 5-6 guys out there. I don't think you lose a lot by going receiver in like round 2 or 3. I could just roll off the names for all those little small guys coming up. The Cincinnati receiver, Downs, Dell. There's so many receivers out there in the 2nd and 3rd rounds that you can grab if you really want that small guy. I don't think, not to say Richie James is the answer to the whole Hardman left, but it is a small little darty guy. The only thing we really haven't replaced is that Juju role, which is kind of like a bigger build guy. We have not replaced that. And again, hearing Reed describe Juju and what he brought to the team, not the fastest, not the biggest, but big enough, fast enough. We don't really have that middle guy, that medium-sized, kind of bulky player. I feel like that's the thing we are missing. So if you're talking about missing things, we haven't replaced that. I want to see what the Omenihu split is. I mean, I'll have to wait for the season for that because I hear a lot of things about him playing inside, playing outside. He did move around a lot. Where do they have him in mind? I don't know. That's a big thing because if they have him playing inside more than we all think, then maybe that D tackle next to Chris Jones isn't as big of a need as we thought it was, right? So it really depends on where he's going to play. If he plays more on the outside, then we replace both our DNs essentially with FAU and Omenihu replacing Clark and Dunlap. Then we do have a gaping hole at D tackle. So it's like D tackle, Juju, And then right tackle, I think, are the biggest needs going forward as far as who you haven't replaced, right? I'm sorry, another guy, I was going to say this earlier, MVS, another guy who's basically on a 1 more year deal.
Yeah.
As it's a get out next year without spending a crazy amount of money on him. So then you're losing your straight line deep threat guy too at that point. Again, there's so many things we can go with these rounds. It's so open. And I did read the PFF guy said too, another interesting thing. They said the strength of this draft is from 75 to about 200. That's this draft's really strong in value. Before that, not as much. So you have to just come away with guys that fit your system. And FAU is probably the most spagsy, definitely the most spagsy guy of the guys left. Nolan Smith was not. 6'2", 236 is anti-spags. There's nothing there. Okay, nothing that reminds. I don't think he's ever had a guy that small ever. I think the smallest guy, the closest guy to that is Dana, who's like, he's like 6'2", but he's also like, I think like 250 something, right?
Yeah.
He's a big boy. He's not 235. So again, so I don't want to go back to him. I think the only guy we missed that was Spagsy, who I thought we might have traded up for, was Murphy. That had Spags written all over, and that would have been a very Veach pick.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted to say something real quick to what Teja was talking about, because let's just be real. If you feel differently, that's fine. But I would like to believe that if you let's say the draft started at 75, and we talk about the value that's there, what GM would you rather have than what the Chiefs have right now? I mean, John Dorsey, the reason why there's a debate going on amongst Chiefs fans about who did the better job and this and that is because John Dorsey knew how to identify star players in the draft. I'll give him that forever. But the thing that Brett Veach does that John Dorsey could never even dream of doing is finding the guys that make the differences here and there late in the draft. I mean, you look at Jalen Watson. Who the hell thought Jalen Watson was going to come into Kansas City and do anything spectacular? This man goes out there and has 2 interceptions in 2 playoff games. I mean, this guy's picking off Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow. That's the kind of stuff. Like, John Dorsey never had that guy, but yet Brett Veach can do it. And I think that you're going to see that again in this draft in different varied positions. I agree with what Teja's saying. I think you've kind of talked me into the whole guard situation, man, because that actually sounds really damn good. Because there is going to be needs there eventually, and we all know that offensive linemen have to work their way in and really get themselves integrated, because sometimes they don't even know what the position is, and they find themselves there, and all of a sudden they flourish. I think that you could very well see that. And one other thing, Teja, you're talking about replacing Juju. You got to get that big-bodied receiver that can make that difference in the middle of the field. It almost sounded like you were describing somebody that my guy Marcus Dash and my guy JD and I have just been nonstop talking about. I forgot his name, so I was kind of hoping that Teja would have his name on deck. Maybe you could help me with it, but it sounded like you described him. I'll hop to you real quick, and maybe you'll figure it out.
Nice. I love that. I can't get the same way. I don't think fans should get attached to Ross becoming a main guy this year. I don't want to get attached to having Hopkins yet, because I'm just going to get disappointed by it, and then we'll feel like we lost something even though we never had it. You know what I mean? And just to say, we have 5 selections from that 75 to 200 range. So yeah, we have a lot of picks during that. So we can do a lot of damage. You can find a receiver that maybe fits that. It's not Hopkins. And you can still get Hopkins. Who cares? You got a third-round receiver who you feel like is good. Again, we have holes opening up constantly. So it's like it's like a sales pipeline. You want the next one to come up around the bend constantly. Just have the next guy come up. So do it at all the positions, man. I know we're not going to draft all these players because it's just too many. So hopefully he uses that to kind of move around the draft board, maybe to get DeJuan Jones moving from 63 or Osiris at guard. I can't wait.
I wanted to throw a few names at you guys. I think we have around 70 people in the chat right now, so welcome everybody. Sorry, we've been going so hard with this day one reaction. But yeah, before we get to the final topic, I wanted to just to say to everybody, definitely support the channel, subscribe, contribute, do all the good stuff. We love seeing all the comments and of course also subscribe and follow our guy Lance's podcast, the Spoken Podcast. You guys can find that on everywhere you get your podcast and also on YouTube. So big name everyone's talking about in the chat. I saw 2 names, and this is one thing that I've kind of Obviously, I'm not from the Missouri area, so I don't get attached to the K-State, Missouri guys, but I'm a big-time degenerate sports gambler, so I bet on a lot of K-State games. And obviously, a guy you can't miss when watching Kansas State this past year with Deuce Vaughn. And it's a name that I saw in the chat, which I'm curious about myself. I want to hear what you guys have to say about that. Jerick McKinnon, we haven't re-signed him yet. He's obviously tweeted about the disrespect that he's gotten. So there is kind of that. There's a void there. And obviously, I'm not going to say Deuce Vaughn's going to come in and do what Jerick McKinnon did, because Jerick McKinnon's in his own world when it comes to being a third down back, being able to block the way he does, being able to catch out the backfield the way he does. But talk to me about where do you guys think Deuce Vaughn will go in this draft? And also talk to me about where, if you think that Deuce Vaughn could be a replacement for Jerick McKinnon. And obviously, we like the Kansas State, Missouri guys. That look at Veach. They like going to get those type of guys. I was talking to JD about that. JD says, yeah, that's a big thing. That a lot of these teams, if they have like smaller colleges in the area, they like to look at that. And obviously, scouting department's right there, so they have a chance to go and watch those teams play more often. So they get to see that. Hence why King Felix makes sense. But what do you guys think about Deuce Vaughn coming to Kansas City? What round do you think you can see him going? Because I've seen him going late in a lot of drafts. But also, what do you guys think about Deuce Vaughn and that potential maybe being the Jerick McKinnon replacement?
Well, Teja, I know that I'm sure you've paid attention to this guy. Simply put, the scenario of the Chiefs getting Deuce would be an incredible asset to this offense, because of the fact that I don't know if people have watched him. I know people that live around me, because I'm from the Kansas side of things. They've watched just how nimble this guy is and how quick and how much of a burst he has. He honestly looks like the perfect weapon for Andy Reid's offense out of the backfield. I would love him. I think he's a little undersized, so I know that would be a risk, but so is Jerick McKinnon. Jerick McKinnon has a history of injuries, and he's in his 30s now, so I think that that's a risk you'd be willing to take if Jerick McKinnon wants to come back, and I do anticipate he would be. But given the scenario, I had the Chiefs taking a running back in the 7th round, actually, again, because of the fact there's just value there. And you saw what the Chiefs did. They bet on themselves and said, look, we're going to get a 1,000-yard running back out of this 7th round this year. Broderic called a shot, and Isaiah Pacheco 100% hit. It took about 7-8 weeks, but once he finally got it, man, he got that job. What's to say the Chiefs don't do that again this year, man? I mean, yes, I understand that teams like the Lions are partying like it's 1997 out here, and they're drafting running backs in the first 12 picks. I don't really know what the hell that was. But I do think it sets some sort of a precedent where now there's pressure where some of these teams are going to think about, like, do we take a running back a round earlier than we were anticipating because someone else might? Like, there's weird things that go on around the league, man. We know it's a copycat league. So I don't really know when Deuce is going to go on. I'm sure Teja has a better idea of that, but I would imagine it's going to probably be in the later rounds. And again, if the Chiefs feel like they've matched their, they've gotten their guys that they want in the draft, and they can trade up and be a little more aggressive as the draft starts to dwindle down, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs were to take a guy like that, because, again, I think he fits the scheme, and I think he'd be one hell of a backup running back to Isaiah Pacheco in the scenario that maybe Jerick McKinnon doesn't come back to Kansas City if he gets an opportunity elsewhere, if a team with a veteran running back gets injured in training camp. And we know that guys like McKinnon don't want to go to training camp, so if a team like, an Eagles team or a Bears team with the Ryan Poles connection where they need a running back to fill a void, who's to say, man? There's guys like that could be out there, but I would be very much open-minded to bringing in Deuce Vaughn.
Also, another guy we haven't talked about who's heartbroken is CEH. So that also has to get figured out too, right? So because there's a chance you could draft somebody and re-sign McKinnon if CEH is traded, right?
Yeah.
We had those 3 last year. Why wouldn't we have 3 guys like that again this year? So.
True.
And McKinnon I feel like McKinnon's the closest thing to a hybrid, because he actually he runs hard, man. That's probably why he's gotten injured so much in his career. He runs hard even though he's a small guy, and he takes the contact. He gets tough yards a lot. I'd say so Deuce could replace CEH or him. I'd probably rather have him replace CEH and re-sign McKinnon, to be honest with you. From what I've read, mid-3rd day for Deuce, 5th round. Probably if we're going to get him, probably our 166, or again, we have so many picks. We have 4, 6s, and 7. So, we have the first pick of the 6th round. So could we jump up from there into the 5th and get him if we wanted to with that pick? Yeah, probably. I do think it's interesting, though. I didn't watch a lot of Kansas State games, but obviously I'm familiar with Deuce Vaughn. He jumps up the screen when you watch their games. He pops out. Should I say Darwin Thompson-y, or is that a sore subject for people? This chat's going to let him go. Darwin Thompson, I remember him. He's a favorite. Everyone wanted him to get that job, right? He had that size. He was jacked up, dude. He was a little ant.
Yeah.
His highlights were in college. Utah State were fun to watch.
Yeah. I mean, so Deuce Vaughn definitely had a more, famous career in college. I mean, Deuce Vaughn was awesome. But one thing I did read about Deuce Vaughn, reading his scouting report, inconsistent hands, a lot of drops, dropping easy passes. I don't know if that is the guy you want replacing McKinnon, though, right? I mean, again with CEH, I think, look, I could swallow Deuce Vaughn not being what he's supposed to be if we get him in the 5th. The thing that burns is going after a guy early. Like CEH not panning out sucks, not because it's a guy not panning out, but just because it was a first-round pick not panning out. I can stomach that from Deuce from the 5th round. So, but I think we finally learned our lesson from that, and we know now we can just get guys later on the draft that just perfectly suit our offense and just plug them in. Pacheco. So, yeah, I mean, they're also – another thing is, too, the free agent running backs are stacked. It's still stacked.
Yeah.
I mean, so
Kareem
that's
Hunt's
probably
there.
yeah, I know. Seriously. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, we can go a lot of different ways of running back. Obviously, it'd be the cheapest one to go, 5th or 6th rounder. But, I would totally love Deuce. It just, have to see what we do with CH and McKinnon, or if we did resign him.
All right, guy KSU 1989 said Deuce is better than D-Train. Darwin Thompson.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Yes. I think our guy Teja was being very much tongue in cheek with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Darwin Thompson, not Darwin Thompson, sorry. Deuce Vaughn. Obviously, Kansas State has just that. They have their mold of running back. I mean, because if you look at him, his being able to run the ball between the tackles for his size is crazy. And also his catching out of the backfield, very Darren Sproles-like. And
ironic.
Yeah, I know if the Sean Payton and Brees team was still around, that'd be a total guy. Everyone's saying, "Oh, this is a total Saints guy right here." And obviously, but yeah, I could see Broncos going to get him. In their with their running back situation.
Javonte Williams, they're saying he might not be ready for the beginning of the season.
It's a giant question mark in their backfield. So I mean, you could say what the Lions are doing over there would actually been beneficial for the Broncos. I really don't understand. I know it's the Chiefs chat here, but you mentioned Detroit, Montgomery, Swift, and now Gibbs. Teja and I made a comment to each other like, how about we have 2 7th round picks? How about we throw a 7th round pick to Detroit's way for DeAndre Swift?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. Yes, the Chiefs have the 249th and 250th pick. If they'll take one of those, absolutely, I'll take Swift. I'll take Swift all day long, man.
Again, more available running backs.
Yeah,
it's crazy with all the available running backs. I really was not expecting 2 top 12 or whatever it was running backs. I was shocked by that.
But we haven't had a first round. They haven't had a first round running back since, what was it, 2020, 2021?
Was that?
It may have been. Yeah, it was. No, it was before that. It was Saquon Barkley, I think, 2018.
What year was Jacobs?
Josh Jacobs. So maybe it was 2020. That's what I'm saying. Maybe it was 2020. But it's been 2-3 drafts.
No, actually, was it CEH? Was he the last first round running back?
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. People, we scare people away from running backs for 4 seasons. We were the cautionary tale for people to be like, ugh.
Yeah, it didn't work that long though, man.
It took one of the best pro prospect or college prospects coming out to be like, all right, guys, not everyone's going to be CH. We can draft somebody. It's okay.
Yeah.
But you know what? In a draft where, again, a few top prospects at each position, then a huge drop off and everyone's tight, go with your best player on your board, man. That's what they did. I respect that. It's look, he's a game breaker. He's the best player on our board. Let's just do it.
Before we get out here, I just want to make note of our AFC West division rivals tonight of what they did. Obviously, Chargers when he got Quinn Johnson, another receiver to throw in that wide receiver room with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I mean, they kicked the can down the road with their contract situation, so that's we know we see what's happening there. So one of those guys is going to be gone next year. I'm guessing Keenan Allen probably the one gone of those three. But Quinn Johnson's in that crew now. And then Raiders went and got Tyree Wilson. Yeah. You throw him in with Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. They spent a lot of money for Chandler Jones, and he didn't do anything for them last year. I looked and we saw that they were to cut Chandler Jones to be $7.2 million in dead cap. So there's potential that could happen
after this season.
After the season, okay. Yeah. So that really wasn't really a need for the Raiders. Yeah, I get it's nice to have another edge rusher, but that's really not a need, right? We have kind of question marks on the D line where they are kind of set at their edge, at least for this year, based on how much money they paid Chandler Jones. But like, there's other things secondary, especially. I know that was one of the things I see a lot of mock drafters say that they should have gone secondary. And Denver didn't have a first round pick, correct? They traded that to Seattle. That's right. Yeah. So let's look at
seconds, I believe.
Okay.
It's like 67th overall, I think, is when they pick first.
That's such a disaster. I'm surprised Sean Payton took that job. That's a 2 or 3 year like plan. But looking at Chargers and Raiders, what do you guys make of that? And I'll even open it up to what Buffalo and Cincinnati did, our main rivals in the AFC. What do you guys think of what you saw from those? Anything stand out between our division rivals and our AFC rivals?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the receiver that the Chargers took is a lot like Mike Williams,
without the jumping ability.
Yeah, he's Mike Williams without high pointing.
Right. Yeah. So
it's like Mike Williams' game.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of confused by. I understand that they kicked the can down the road with the contracts, and I think that they're going to be owed all. It's both those receivers are going to have like $30 million in cap hits next offseason. So yeah, I understand that you want to have contingency plans in place, but I felt like they could have maybe got a guy that wasn't identical to Mike Williams outside of the high point, like Teja just said. But I was just more confused more than anything. I think that was that the first receiver taken in the draft, if I'm not mistaken?
No, Njigba was.
Okay, yes, I apologize. I think it was the second receiver.
He went a lot later than I thought he was going to go. That
right.
Was like he's coming
Zay Flowers
straight up zone.
Yeah, I thought Zay was going to go in the first 15 picks. But anyway, yeah, I was more just confused by that pick. It was a head scratcher. I understood what the Raiders are trying to do because you want to stockpile pass rushers when you're going against the Chiefs offensive line and Patrick Mahomes. I can't help but laugh at that team though because they're now the Raidtriots. Like they're getting all these Patriot players over there to try to make this into the Raiders or the Patriots of yesteryear with Josh McDaniels. Maybe it's just me. I tweeted this out when I saw the pick, and maybe Tyree ends up becoming a really good player. But every time I see the Raiders take a first-round pick, I almost automatically assume I'm going to see this guy as a free agent in 2 years because they're going to cut him because he's not good. That's just kind of where I have it. Maybe I'll be wrong. Maybe he's the outlier here. But I don't trust Josh McDaniels. I don't trust the Raiders. And as you said earlier, we can't even talk about the Broncos until day 2. So I was just more confused. It was more of an And when it came to the Bills and the Bengals, that was actually far more interesting because the Bills, actually, I thought with Kincaid, that was a hell of a pickup. That dude is a hell of an athlete. Dude can catch. He's basically a glorified wide receiver. So adding that to Stephon Diggs and Dawson Knox and Gabriel Davis and those guys, I think that's going to really, really help out. I did make a joke though that I said he's going to make one hell of a blocking in for Josh Allen as a runner. But I was pissed about the Bengals. I'll be honest with you. I wanted Myles Murphy, man. I'm not going to lie. That very much hurt.
Good pick.
I 100% agree with what you were saying earlier about what's his face from Georgia. But I wanted Myles Murphy bad, and I think that's what the Chiefs were trying to do. I don't want to speak for the Chiefs, but I think they were definitely trying to get ahead of the Bengals because they knew the Bengals were going to go and snatch him. So that was the one that hurt the most. Obviously, I'm at peace with the Bills and what they did because the Chiefs weren't going tight in the first round. So the Bills got better. The Bengals definitely got better, but I definitely want to give a shout out to the Eagles for their draft picks already. Man, I think they've crushed it. I think the Texans have done really well. I think there's some teams that are really impressing across the league right now. And I think the Eagles right now are at the top of the list, man. I know people in Kansas City may not want to hear that, but we got the Super Bowl ring out of it, so I'm not really tripping on it. But I think that they're right now the leaders in the pack of the pack right now when it comes to this draft.
Yeah, the Philadelphia Bulldogs, what a lot of people are calling them.
That's true, man.
Bulldogs on that.
I think Chargers. I think Keenan Allen might be on the Chiefs in the next year or two. That's what I think. I think he might take that Juju spot next year. A big receiver who can run routes in the intermediate area. Yeah, that sounds like him at least. I think I wasn't really surprised they went receiver though. I heard they wanted to go receiver. The Bills, great job. I heard they wanted a receiver bad. If you can't get one, just get a playmaker. Who cares what position he plays nowadays, man? Like Kelce's not a true tight end, right? He's a receiver or tight end. He's all over the place. If you get a guy who's special, you put him anywhere. He's a receiving threat for you.
Yeah.
The Raiders, I wasn't surprised by that either. It's funny though, Miles Murphy on a lot of people's edge list was rated higher than Tyree. So it's like it looks weird to look, we can swallow Felix at 31 because we have 31, but when you draft a guy at whatever 7 or whatever they draft him, and Murphy 20 picks later is getting drafted and he was rated higher, that's got to sting a little bit. But I think they had to do that. Again, other teams are trying to be smart, right? When you have such a large cap number dedicated to somebody and you have a get out next year with Chandler Jones, it'll be a need very quickly. So if that's the strength of a weak draft and it's a good pick or you like the guy, then take him. Yeah, maybe you didn't cross all your needs, but they always say it's a mistake to draft for need anyway. You draft for strength.
All right, guys. Well, that does it for us. That's for the day one Chief Concerns post-draft reaction.
I want to say one last thing about Felix. So I also like that he had at least a half sack in 7 games. He had 8.5 sacks total, but a half sack at least in 7 games. So it wasn't like one of those, he had 2 4 sack games and nothing the rest of the season. He got pressure consistently throughout the year.
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. That's a good little nugget there. I always love that when a guy's got like 10 sacks on the year. You look at his stats. He had 1 game where he had 4 sacks.
Yeah.
It's like D Ford. Yeah. When he terrorized the backup right tackle for the Chargers that one game.
Oh man. Hey, Braylon Speaks tearing it up in the USFL. It's good.
It's good to see that Brett Veach drafted him for the USFL 5 years later. That's awesome.
There you go.
Hey, Brett Veach.
You know when they always say about NBA players, where's he going to be next year? Everyone's always like China. That's like our version of that.
Exactly right. It's exactly right.
Sorry.
Are you guys gonna get a DeAndre Hopkins jersey? Because I don't buy jerseys very often, but I might do it. I'm just saying.
If we get Hopkins, I'm definitely doing it, and I'll send you my personal DH gate.
Even if no new contract comes, even if it just comes with basically on a 1-year deal, you get his jersey.
I'll be honest with you. That actually sounds more attractive to me because I like the idea of him being a rental. I don't want to invest in that guy long term. He's 31 years old. I'm good with him not being here long term. If it's 1-2 years, 2 years, help this team elevate to another Super Bowl, get his legacy built up with a championship. That sounds like a perfect little fling to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. Just I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I've been a crazy jersey collector all my life. And 1 year doesn't matter to me. I mean, my last few jerseys I got was LaShawn McCoy, Chiefs jersey, and Le'Veon Bell, Chiefs jersey. So
you got to pick them, dude.
Those were real rentals. Blockbuster movies were out longer than those guys were on the Chiefs.
And also, this is a funny story. I told JD. JD loved this one. So many years ago, I was probably like 9th grade. It was after Broderic had already started some games for us. And we were getting my other brother. We were getting Teja's Chiefs helmet signed by Len Dawson, and Len Dawson came to Northern Virginia, and we went. And keep in mind, Len Dawson at 09, he was calling the games and stuff. He knew what was going on in the Chiefs world. But I'm like a kid, and Len Dawson's a big deal. So I go there getting it signed in more than Brody Croyle number 12 jersey. I was a huge Croyle fan. I've always had a thing about the quarterbacks. I have a Brady Quinn Chiefs jersey as well. Another ridiculous one.
Another rental.
But I wore the Brody Croyle jersey to this autograph show, and Len Dawson goes, "Who's that?" And I'm like, I look at my jersey. I'm like, Brody Croyle. He goes, "Yeah, I know exactly who." And this is while he was starting for us too. So,
oh man,
yeah. So my jersey collection, man, I like getting the guys that when someone sees like, damn, you have that jersey? Wow. Like, yeah.
I mean, at this point, what's stopping you from getting a Savvy Piscatelli jersey, bro? I mean, damn, you just might as well go down the list of just unearthed random Chiefs players. I
would love that. The one I've looked for a while. They had it on eBay. Someone had like a women's like medium. It was a Monty Beisel jersey. I wanted that.
Oh man, that's a good one too.
That's another random one.
Oh my God, I forgot about his ass, man. That's amazing, dude. That's amazing.
That's my goal, to try to get as many like random ones as I can.
Your last two jerseys you said were Le'Veon Bell and LaShawn McCoy. I've been watching this team called the Cobra Kai, and there's this quarterback named Marcus Dash. I think he might actually be better at football than those guys were in their last year in the NFL. I'm just saying. I'm just throwing that out there.
Hey, you said it. I didn't say it. You said it.
I looked this up right before we're taking off. So far, 4 different websites for draft grades. B+, A-, B+.
Oh, for our day one pick?
Yeah.
Suck it, Mel Kiper.
Yeah, Mel Kiper. Yeah. In what world are you getting that guy in the 5th round? I don't know. But
not this one.
Yeah. But that's it for us for tonight. Tomorrow night, Teja and I will be back for day 2 reaction. Lance is not going to be here for the show, but Lance will be joining us on Saturday for day 3 reaction, where we can kind of wrap up the entirety of the draft. And so we'll see you guys late tomorrow night after day 2. So take it easy, everybody.
There you guys.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.